Hey, what's up, plumbing business owners? Today we have a special guest. It's Mr. Alan O'Neill, the owner of Abacus Plumbing. And today we're going to talk about how he started in 1977, got a private equity partner by 2012. Actually, he started the business in 2012, 2003, sorry, 2003.
2003,
By
correct,
the
Tony.
time he hit 2012, making $9.3 million a year, okay? From 2012 to right now, 2024, two locations, one in Houston, one in Austin. Houston is doing $85 million a year. Austin is doing $27 million a year. It's $112 million a year. And this is the man. So today we're going to be learning from him. You know, Mr. Alan O'Neill, you're definitely a celebrity in our industry. And before we get into like all the meat and potatoes, because he's going to be exposing some secrets today about like what he did first and what he did next to like create another million. And for the guys that are stuck at 10 million or 30 million, this is a good guy to learn from, right? For the guys that haven't hit a million, write some notes. For the guys that are doing 50 to 80 million, this is a man to learn from. Like, I think we can all learn from this, right? From this man, Mr. Alan O'Neill. You're definitely a celebrity in our industry. So before we get into those educational questions, I'd love to hear your story and how it all began.
Great. Well, Tony, thanks for the kind words. Yeah, it seems like it was only yesterday, but it was all the way back in 1977 in Dublin, Ireland, Tony. I had got out of high school and college was never really on the cards for me. I didn't know anybody that went to college. I was an inner city kid. And first trade that became available was plumbing. And I said, this is as good as anything else, so I'll start as an apprentice plumber. Started as an apprentice plumber in 1977. Came out of my time, as we called it, like serving my time in 1981, became a plumber, fully union plumber back in Dublin. And, have never worked in any industry since. So, what's that now, 47 years in the trade, continuously, Tony. It's given me a great life, no doubt about it. I have a lot of respect for plumbers. I think the trade is an amazing trade. It's so full of opportunity. It's unbelievable. But it's been a great run. I actually got a green card in a worldwide lottery in 1996, Tony. I was looking for a change in my life, and I entered the US lottery, and fortunately got pulled out and got a green card and took my family to Houston, where my wife's uncle was, and start working for a local contractor. And very fortunately, that contractor was a member of, it was Contractors 2000 at the time. It's now Nexstar. And I learned a lot very, very quickly. He promoted me to service manager and eventually sold the company in the first wave of consolidation back in the late 90s. I got the opportunity to be president of the company when he moved on. And so I will tell you, when I learned I was going to be president, I had never read a P&L in my life, and it was a $2 million business. I grew it to 4 million in a couple of years, and eventually, as what happened to most companies in that wave of consolidation, our parent company filed bankruptcy, and I left and started Abacus in April 29, 2003.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Insane.
That's just amazing. Talk about some opportunity. Some people are like have the dreams but just don't take enough action, and
Well, I'll tell you, it was looking back on it, Tony, it was a brave decision to take two young kids and a wife to the far side of the world. And just before we left, we realized my wife was pregnant with our son, who was made in Ireland but born in the US. Yeah, so there was a lot of little obstacles along the way, but as I look back, it was the best thing I ever did, Tony.
that I agree. That's amazing. And it's an honor to speak with you, sir. So you started plumbing in 77. You started your plumbing business in 2003. Before we get to talking about how you got to $112 million per year, let's talk about the first million, and then we'll talk about how you got to the next and the 50 and the 100, and we'll jump from like 1 to 9 and then go on from there, like
Yeah,
9,
yeah.
right? So you start your plumbing company, it's 2003. How long did it take you to get to your first $1 million? And I'd like for you to share with us a little bit of like secret sauce, like what did you have to implement in your business to take you from there to there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tony. So when we started, I had a partner who was older than me. Jim was, and Bob worked for Jim and I back in the day. So Jim was the older gentleman who had a lot of experience in the plumbing industry. I brought energy. Like I was the guy, the run around, get it done kind of guy. And so, we started out and we started with 2 owners, 2 plumbers, 2 trucks, and a 6,000 square foot building because we said, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to get big quickly. And so I remember that first month, Tony, we did $50,000 in sales, which was incredible back then. Like, internet wasn't as prevalent. So it was really guerrilla marketing. It was really getting out there and finding ways to connect with customers. We had missed the yellow pages. So back then was the yellow pages was how you got your calls. But we literally, we were very, very hungry. And one thing we did right from the start, Tony, which a lot of people are not willing to do, is we said we're going to answer the phone live 24/7. And we still do that today. We answer the phone live 24/7 because we knew that if we were going to take competition's customers, we had to take them when they weren't available. And in Houston at that time, very few people were doing a good job after hours and at weekends. So we were picking up those customers, picking up those calls. We did $1 million in the first year.
Wow.
We literally took every dime and poured it back into the business. I took a very small salary. My partner didn't take any salary in the first year. Now we equaled it out as we went on. But, we said, look, we're going to build something remarkable here. And I remember our goal, Tony, was we were going to get to 5 trucks. We were going to do 400,000 a truck. That was 2 million. We were going to get to this pinnacle of $2 million a year. And we were going to make 15% net. We'd be making $300,000. We were at 5 trucks in 5 months, Tony. Like we were hustling and making it happen. So, it was a great time. It was a lot of fun back then. And Bob on the call here. So Bob came, like, I think it was either 2003 or 2004, but very early in the birth of the company, Bob came along, and I remember him telling me how good he was, and I thought he was full of what, and he was that good. Bob was that good. I have to say, he was a great addition, and we've been together more or less ever since, and that's been 21 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Alan.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that. Alan used to actually bring me water heaters out to clients' houses and actually help me get them up into the attics. That was those are the beginning days, Big Daddy. I remember that. Yeah, those were good times.
We were doing, Tony, we were doing everything we had to do to make it work. And I had this mantra, Tony, people have asked me many times throughout the years, what's the secret sauce? Like, what's the secret to success? And I always had this idea that if we could get a little better every single day, do one small thing every day to make the company better, that adds up a lot over the space of a year. And even today, when I come to work today, I still think to myself, like, what can we do today to get just a little bit better than we were yesterday? Now, some days we don't succeed. We don't make it better than it was the previous day, or we may even go backwards. But if you really have an eye on making small improvements every day as you go, I think you're going to look up and you're going to have a company you can be proud of really quickly.
That's awesome. I want to pick apart this question a little bit more and just dive a little deeper. I'm paying attention to details, and so like I'm a plumber. I started in 2003, and by 2017, I opened up this company, Strictly Plumbers. It's a marketing agency. So I went from being like wrenching on plumbing to building websites and Google ads and Facebook ads. So marketing is my jam. And now I do business coaching and sales training, and I've actually acquired other companies now, and I don't just own one anymore, and I am now a 7-figure earner. But I don't want to make this about you, about me. I want to make this about you. I want to know about your marketing. You mentioned guerrilla marketing. Now I know what that means. I would love to hear your definition of not just guerrilla marketing, but what did you do exactly to put out that guerrilla marketing?
Guerrilla marketing is when we dress Bob up in a gorilla suit with a sign and he spins it at the end of the street. No. So basically it's everything you can do that's free, Tony, to market. So, I mean, I had my kids dropping flyers at all the homes in the neighborhood. You know, we were following up on every single call with every customer to make sure they were satisfied. And if they weren't, we were fixing it. Everything we could do to promote the business that was free, we did. Now, but we also made a decision before we ever opened the company that we were going to put as much money as we possibly could without going broke back into marketing in that first year. So that first year of $1 million in revenue, we spent $200,000 on marketing. It was 20% of our revenue. And, that doesn't seem like a lot of money today for a business to spend on marketing, but in 2003, that was a lot of money. So we put 20% back in the first year. And you will know, Tony, one of the key things a company has to do today is invest in marketing and then track marketing to see is it working. So we decided that a healthy budget for a thriving company was 10% of revenue. And what we did every year, Tony, was we took that 10% and said, when we're budgeting for 2005, we're going to spend 10% of what we hope to do in 2005, not what we just did in 2004. So in 2005, if we were looking for 5 million, we were spending 10% of 5 million. So we were committing 10% of our anticipated revenue before we hit the revenue. What's remarkable about that when I look back, Tony, is in 21 years, and keep in mind, we came through a couple of crashes between 2003 and 2025. But in 21 years, Abacus has never had a year where it didn't make more revenue than the previous year. So we've had 21 years of continuous growth, which I'm really proud of because we've had some tough years, and I think the other thing we did is, and this will be music to your ears, is we invested in training throughout the years. Like we've had, and as I mentioned, Bob has been around for most of those years. We've had probably 7 different sales training companies over those 20 years, because I think the company that trains your plumbers when you're 2 million is not the company that's going to train them when you're at 20 million, for example, right? So different phases of growth requires different types of training, but we always trained our people. And so that's a really key important thing to do, I think, as you're trying to grow.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a big deal, because I feel like a lot of plumbing companies that are big have a training system in place, right? Like we could talk about big franchises with like hundreds of locations, and they're using this same method. Not to knock it, but I love what you said. I love you gotta try multiple. Like, okay, so you got this one that works. That doesn't mean this one doesn't work. Maybe, like you got crayons, well, you got blue and red. You don't need crayons, you gotta have these different colors and different perspectives.
Well, what I've learned about plumbers, Tony, and I'm a plumber myself, so I say this with the greatest level of respect, is they can be a little bit hard-headed, right? I mean,
no,
this is no shock, but
no.
but I learned that I could bring in a training company, and they would say things to my plumbers that I had said previously, but the plumbers would be sitting there going, "That's really good stuff," and I'm sitting there going, I told you that 6 months ago. But it's kind of like the powdered butt syndrome, Tony. You don't listen to the person that powdered your butt, like your dad. but you'll listen to your dad's friend or whatever. And I think it's the same with training. I think, you know, bringing in an outside source to train, number one, your plumbers know you're making an investment in them. And number two, it's just a different way of saying something that will really resonate with either a plumber or a group of plumbers. And, you know, I have been fortunate, Tony, as you said at the start of the podcast, is, you know, you've been very successful. We've got a lot of accolades from Inc. 5000 awards to, I think it's 16 Better Business Bureau awards for excellence now and all those things. But you know what gives me the most satisfaction of anything that we've ever done is seeing people that came into this trade that were sort of cast off by high school career guidance counselors as being useless, right? And I watched them rise to make six figures easily, pretty quickly. I watched them buying houses. I watched them buying cars. I watched them sending their kids to good schools and stuff like that. Like, I've actually got goosebumps talking about that, because that's what, you know, I can, and Bob knows these people, but I can think of Chris Castro, one of our plumbers, showed up when he was 16 with a backpack on his back like he was going to school. Chris is one of our top earners now. Aaron Duff is another kid that started. His dad was a really good friend of mine, and we brought Aaron in as an apprentice. 20 years later, he's still working for us and doing really well. Like, to me, that's success. You know, you're changing people's lives, and we have a huge opportunity to do that in this plumbing trade. And, you know, we should do it. Like, people should take that training and run with it, and be very thankful. Like, I try and convince our young people, like, I often use Chris Castro as an analogy, Tony, if you bear with me for a second here. Chris started in Abacus Plumbing the same day my daughter started in college. And my daughter went on and she got a degree in education and subsequently went on and got a master's degree. But she will never catch Chris Castro in earnings. Wow. Never. It's not possible, right? And Chris, we paid him to be educated, and he learned the way. Fantastic plumber, by the way. One of the most skilled plumbers you'll ever meet. Great with the customers. He could sell, you know, the proverbial ice cream to Eskimos. You know, he's just one of those guys. He's amazing. But you know, that's to me what success is. We're taking young people and changing their lives in this trade. It's fantastic, you know.
Yeah, it was really cool to see Chris. If you recall, he actually when I retired my tools, he picked up my truck. Nice. He picked my truck up. So that was way cool. Way cool.
It's a big deal. I picked up the truck, but, you know, very specific people in my life. I was honored to pick. I'm sure he was honored to pick up your truck.
I'll tell you what, it was really cool because I'd had a substantial back injury, and Chris had just gotten his license, and, you know, and he'd been an apprentice with us for what, 4 or 5 years, Alan? Mm-hmm. And he got to ride with me side by side for like 3 months during this process. And then he didn't know I was going to be retiring my tools. I didn't know I was going to be retiring my tools. But during that process of the back injury, it came time for him to inherit the truck. You could tell it was a super real, emotional, surreal for him. Very surreal to see that. And it was a really emotional moment for me too. I haven't shared this with anybody. Chris remembers it though. And that was cool because he took over my truck and the kids started setting records right away. It was really cool.
The truck had some good juju there.
Good DNA in it. Yeah.
There was some good DNA in that stuff, baby.
Yeah, no doubt. So I want to talk a little bit more about marketing, right? So I love how year one, you made $1 million, you invested 200,000. That's 20%. Some people have the 10% rule. You doubled up on that. And then after that, I love how you invested your projected 10%, like what you want to do next year versus what you did the year before. And that's a pretty cool rule of thumb. But I think a lot of people are wondering, like, well, what kind of marketing do I use? So I wanted to take the moment to highlight Strictly Plumbers Marketing, which is my marketing agency. And like I mentioned earlier, I was a plumber for 15 years. And so I ended up having to go out and study online digital advertising after 15 years of plumbing. And so I went to San Diego State University and I went through a college phase. And then I took like online courses. Then I took some coaching. I would not let off. And I had to crack the code on plumbing lead generation. So if anybody needs an idea of like, you can do some stuff for free and you can do some stuff that's paid. Well, obviously, so my stuff is not free. If you want to figure out like some paid stuff, well, I am the plumber that gives a shit about your marketing. Okay. So that's one of my taglines, and so I help you get more plumbing leads and grow your business. How do I do that? SEO, website design, pay-per-click. We do sales training as well for plumbers, local service ads, which is Google Guarantee, Facebook marketing advertising, logo design. The list goes on. Back to sales training here. Lead generation is where it's at. So on my website here, what you can see is this video, and it's like an 8-minute video that explains my plumbing marketing agency, and it tells you all the things that I do. Or you can go to the menu here and look at all the stuff that I have developed in the last 7 years, And if you continue to scroll down, you'll see that, I've been listed on CBS News, ABC, NBC, Fox News. And how did we make the news? Well, that's called PR work, And so if you want to schedule an appointment, you can set a free appointment by clicking on the top area here. You'll see some buttons all over. And I have what I call a toolbox. Like, welcome to my toolbox of marketing. I'm a plumber, so I talk like one. Like I said, website design, SEO, Google pay-per-click ads, Facebook marketing. This is just the beginning of like how to get leads to dump into your plumbing business every day without having to overspend. We're trusted by and we work with Service Titan. I believe you work with Service Titan, House Call Pro is another one, Service Fusion, Jobber. There's a whole bunch of them. And so, there's a big difference between every other marketing agency and Strictly Plumbers Marketing Agency. We understand what you need in your plumbing company. We know how to, like, the ins and outs of a plumbing company and what it needs. We know stuff that the typical marketing agency just doesn't know. So I do have something free for everybody that hires my company. There's some bonuses. Like if you hire us for websites, SEO, or pay-per-click, or any of those things, we'll provide you some free sales training, free dispatch training for plumbers, social media training for plumbers. There's these things that are bonuses. All you got to do is schedule an appointment by clicking on one of these buttons. We also provide business coaching for plumbers. I have an online course where there's 27 modules and it'll teach you how to start a plumbing company, how to sell a plumbing company, and everything in between, like marketing, managing, dispatch, sales. The list goes on and on and on and on. So if you need a better website, we can help you. If you need to become #1 plumber in your local area with Google, we can help you. We can teach you more about pay-per-click ads to make your phone ring with customers within 14 days. If you need better branding for your plumbing company on Facebook or Instagram, I've been trained at the headquarters. That's a picture of me when I still had hair. And so, I've been at it for a while now, And so we can definitely help any plumbing company grow throughout the United States, as long as you do residential or commercial service and repair. I've now helped over 500 plumbing companies in the last it's gonna be 7 years in October, from like really big monster companies like Mr. Rooter that's got hundreds and hundreds of locations nationwide, down to like smaller companies like True Value Plumbing. Great story there. He's my apprentice from back in the day.
Wow.
The guy was my apprentice. Like he went from being my apprentice to one day hitting me. I quit my job, started this, became successful, hit me up. He says, "Hey, I want to quit my job. Can you help me build a plumbing company?" He now makes millions of dollars for his own plumbing company. So I do have a blog. You can see what's new, what's exciting. You know, you can get educated on my website as well, not just sold services, you know. Go to marketing tips and you will see, these are some of the blogs. You know, you may come across some of the reviews that we have gained over the years, like the one that just popped up on the left. You know, so this blog, there's the plumbing marketing blueprint. You know, figure out how to do some marketing or just hire us to do it for you. Please schedule a free call. My name is Tony G, and I will help you get more plumbing leads. Okay, so that's that. I want to get back to Mr. Alan O'Neill, and I think you've answered a lot of the questions of, like, you know, what did you do? What did you not do to make your first million? I want to fast forward a little bit and take us to from 2003 to 2012. You went from 0 to $1 million in 1 year, and then bam, you just like fast forwarded. And let's go to 2012. You got a private equity partner. You're now making $9.3 million a year. Tell us a little bit about that process. Like, you know, how does a plumbing business owner look into getting a private equity partner, and what is your recommendation for guys out there?
Yeah, so I mean, it has become the fashionable thing to do since 2012. There's been a lot of consolidation of our industry and people selling out to private equity. But what happened to me, Tony, was I was going along quite happily. We were very profitable. We had about 35 employees, and like, I'm not saying this just to say it, but we were really good. Like, we had a really good crew. We probably had the best group of plumbers, I would argue, maybe in the United States. I mean, these guys were all really, really good. And you know, we were just plugging away. And I was at my attorney's office and I was doing some estate planning and trying to figure out, like, you know, my retirement and all that. And my attorney said to me, let me ask you a question. He said, what would happen to Abacus if something happened to you? Like, what's your plan? And I said, I never thought it, like, never even entered my head. And he looked at my wife and he said, have you any interest in running a plumbing company? And she's like, oh, hell no, I don't want anything to do with that. Those guys are crazy. So he was like, well, you should think about, like, taking on a partner or getting involved in something that would protect the employees. Because the conclusion I came to, Tony, was if something happened to me, my wife would have to sell the company in a fire sale, and the guys would all end up working for one of the big conglomerates that I didn't want to expose my people to. So anyway, I didn't actively go out and look for a buyer, but as luck would have it, I was approached by a buyer. I talked to them and I found out I didn't want to do business with them. And so I continued to work. And then I got a call to say there was a young guy from Seattle interested in coming to talk to me. It turned out that guy was just starting his journey in the private equity world. He came in and he painted a vision for me of what we could do together. And he had already bought a company in Dallas. And so we were his second acquisition in February 2012. And part of the deal was we would start air conditioning right away, which we did. We started air conditioning in 2012. And then we started electrical in 2015. And in 2015, the first private equity group sold us to a company called InvestCorp in New York. And we became a portfolio company of InvestCorp. Now, at that stage, there was 4 businesses. There was ourselves, the company in Dallas, we had a company in Phoenix, and we bought the company in Atlanta, which is called Coolray. And, you know, we were purchased by InvestCorp. What they did was, at the time when we were up for sale, they gave the name of the investment the Wrench Group. It was just a name that would not disclose who we were, but it was enough to put on the book to go out to prospective buyers. And the name the Wrench Group just stuck. So that was how the Wrench Group started in 2015. We started as the Wrench Group, and now the Wrench Group is over $1.5 billion, you know, 28 companies across the country, 28 brands. And so I learned a lot on that private equity
Wow.
journey. I can tell you, Tony, like I found myself sitting in a boardroom in Park Avenue asking myself, I'm a plumber from Dublin. What the hell am I doing here? Like, this is unbelievable. You talk about imposter syndrome. It was real. But you know, I learned a lot from those guys, Tony. Like I learned really how to run a business very, very deeply by the numbers and the KPIs. And it was a great time, a great learning experience. We then sold again in 2019. So I've been a part of like 3.5 exits so far. And in 2020, this is 24, so 23, I went to the Wrench Group and said, look, I have a desire to slow down a bit. The CEO very kindly said, yes, if you want to, you can just work as a consultant for us. And I had been grooming my successor here for about 1.5 years, 2 years before that, Tony Patino, who's done a wonderful job. And Tony stepped into the president's role. I was serving as the regional CEO for Texas. So I had 2 companies in Dallas, the company in Houston, and then the new branch we started in Austin under my control. And so we hired another regional guy. Tony took over at Abacus, and then I work, 15 hours a week helping Tony as a consultant. So I still feel like I'm a part of the Wrench Group and a part of Abacus. And it's the best of both worlds, Tony. I get to spend time with my grandkids and my wife. She would rather I work full time because I'm a pain in the tail at home. I'm joking, but no, she's very appreciative. I mean, Linda, I'm very fortunate. I've been with Linda now for over 40 years, and we were dating when I was an apprentice. So like we go back that far. So it was time for me to give her some time back and spend some time with her for all her patience over the years. So
That's incredible.
That is incredible. I thank you so much for sharing this incredible story. I'd like to learn more about. So you got this private equity partner, and you mentioned they taught you how to run a business on a more granular level, like deeper level, where you mentioned KPIs. So they taught you strategy, they taught you skills, but I'm assuming they also threw money at it too,
oh
right?
yeah.
Can you just touch base a little bit more about the strategy and the money? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big obstacles to growth, Tony, when you're an independent business owner is like you're putting your own money on the table every single day. Like you have 35 plumbers, you got to pay 35 people no matter how the business performs, right? If you want to grow and add trucks, you're literally putting your own money on the line every day that you add a truck. If someone has an accident, you're on the hook. So I think one of the big things that I got from having a private equity partner is it took a lot of the pressure off, Tony, the financial pressure. Like you're now working with somebody else's money, so to speak. So you have to really be, well, no, number one, you want to take really good care of it or you won't last long in the job. But number two, it does give you the ability to really be a free entrepreneur, to really get after what you think you can do. I would have never got to north of $100 million, Tony, on my own. Like the Wrench Group and the group before that were instrumental in number one, teaching me what to do, but number two, providing the capital to allow you to do that. And I remember the very first morning we were bought back in 2012, and I had my private equity partner showed up for my tech meeting. And one of the trucks, it was like February, so it was dark at 6:30 in the morning. One of the trucks turns into a parking lot, and there's a branch sticking out of the roof where he had hit a tree on the way to work. And I just looked at Colin and said, it looks like you wrecked one of your trucks. Like, wasn't my problem anymore. But it was, I mean, there's some people, Tony, you're going to interview people that will tell you they merged with private equity or took on a private equity partner and it was terrible. I've had nothing but great experience and great partners that are very honorable people that live up to their word and allow you to be an entrepreneur. One of the fantastic things about the Wrench Group is they allow us have a great deal of autonomy as business owners. So there are models out there in private equity world that don't give you autonomy. In fact, quite the opposite. But I've been fortunate with the private equity groups I've been involved with to have a lot of autonomy and very, very supportive partners, Tony, which is wonderful, you know.
That is just amazing, 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 amazing. So, so they taught you some strategy, and then they gave you money, and then so it's not just like, here's some money, go do what you think. It's like, here's some money and strategy. You're gonna
Well, you're very accountable, Tony. You know, you're very accountable for what you're doing, but at the end of the day, it's supportive. Like if mistakes are going to happen and things are going to happen in a business, and you know, that's the ups and downs of the business. But I think they got involved enough to be supportive, but stood off enough to allow you to flourish as an entrepreneur and really see how far you could take this thing. Listen, I started a division in Austin in 2021 when COVID happened. So imagine showing up in a city where nobody knows you, wearing a mask, trying to convince plumbers it was a good idea to come work for you. It's not an ideal scenario, right? So, but you know, Wrench were supportive enough. They said, look, we want to get to 30 million as fast as we can. What can you do? Here's more or less unlimited marketing dollars to throw at this thing. Now you go take the money and make it work. And listen, that shows a great deal of confidence in me as a leader to be able, you know, that they trusted me to do that. But I had a lot of support back at Wrench headquarters, you know, marketing, expertise and data analytics and all the things you need to do to grow. But it's a fantastic experience. It gave me the buzz of starting a new business without putting any of my own money on the line. And, you know, I always say, I remember one day I was driving with my wife and I could actually take you to the part of the road we were on. It was such a memorable conversation. And she said to me, Alan, what are you going to do when you retire? And I said, I don't know, I might do this again. And she's like, pull over. I'm getting out. Like she was like, we're not doing this again, right? But I got the best of both worlds, Tony. I got to do it again without having to sacrifice a huge amount of time or a huge amount of money to do it. And you know, we've grown a 130 person operation up there with, you know, 27-ish million of dollars in revenue every year. Still working on the profitability piece, but you know, it's been fun. It's been fun, Tony. I'm a big fan of private equity because they've really treated me fantastically well, you know.
Hey, Alan, just for a perspective, I was plumber 5 or 6, if I recall. How many people are there at the Houston location now?
I think the number, and it's terrible, I don't know it off the top of my head. I used to know everybody's name, date of birth, wife's name, kid's name. I think we're at about 435 people in Houston now, Bob.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's insane.
That is insane. That is insane.
I know.
Now, I know there's some plumbers watching this and they're thinking, well, I don't want to give up too much percentage. Did you ever feel that, or like, how did that work out? Like, you know, because it's kind of hard to let go of your baby, but you definitely want the help. And so what do you recommend is a good percentage for somebody out there? You don't have to expose your number, but what do you feel is a good percentage for somebody out there, a plumbing business owner that is considering a private equity owner, for them to give up?
Yeah, so Tony, it depends on your appetite, right? I mean, so for me, the way my deals are structured is you basically sell 100% of the company and you put money back in as an investor in the new entity, right? And so you leave skin in the game. And the reason private equity companies, I believe, the reason private equity companies ask you to leave skin in the game is they don't want you to call in rich, like, you know, like I've got a bunch of money, I'm not going to work anymore, which happens a lot. So
Yeah.
I think they want you to have skin in the game. It's entirely up to you. I mean, I've heard of everything from 50, you know, 49%, because the private equity group are going to want control in most cases. So they have heard everything from 49% down to 20, 15% that the old owner has in the new business, you know. But it's been lucrative for me, Tony. I'll tell you that. It's been a great run for me. I've never felt for a second that my investment was in jeopardy, because I was in control of my own destiny, at least as a partner, So I think for people, it depends on your appetite. There's people I know, Tony, that own plumbing business that I would say to them, don't ever, ever sell your company, because you'd be a horrible employee, because you do become an employee, whether you know it or not. You become an employee the day you turn over control of your company, because you can be removed if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So there's some people that I would not recommend it to, but for someone that's looking for an exit strategy and still wants to work and contribute and build, I think it's a fantastic way to go. And everybody has a number, Tony, right, where they're willing to let go. Everybody has a number. And if you can hit your number and retain some ownership, to me, that's the best of both worlds. Worked well for me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for the perspective. So I'd like to fast forward a little bit into, closer to 2024 right now. You're doing $112 million. Like I said, Houston's 85, Austin's 27. I only know these numbers because you told me, before this meeting. And so tell us about training the plumbers, not just like training you, right? But I think earlier you mentioned like it's good to hear it from the coach versus mom and dad, right? So, and then you said do more than one training. So you got one training coach and he taught your company how to do this, and you went off and did it 20 more times, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more on sales training and why it's not just why it's important, but give us some perspective, like what kind of training should a plumbing business owner be looking for when it comes to training their plumbers to sell more ethically?
Yeah. So ethically is the word, Tony, right? Like the last thing you want is guys to feel like you're telling them to sell for the sake of selling. And Bob will tell you, he's been in 1,000 meetings that I've ran where every time I talk about selling, I say honestly and ethically, like this is just part of our DNA. But here's what I'll tell you, Tony, is in Texas, we're fortunate in that people have to be licensed to be a plumber. So you have to assume they have a certain level of competency. Now, it is an assumption because I've seen people with licenses that couldn't stick two pieces of PVC together. And I've seen people that don't yet have their license that are excellent tradespeople, will become even better as they get licensed. So we assume they have a certain level of competency once they have their either tradesman's license or the journeyman license or a master's license. Then what your problem is you can find a good plumber, you can't always find a great communicator. It is rare to find somebody that's both. The gentleman on the call here, Bob, happens to be both. He's a really solid plumber, great plumber, and a great communicator. That's not the norm. So as we have grown, Tony, what we've done is we've divided the company into selling technicians and installers only. So we have plumbers that are installers only that are very good technical plumbers, but maybe not fantastic communicators. So we allow our selling technicians to sell and pass the work over to an installer. So when it comes to training, we've brought in different groups for different forms of sales training over the 21 years, Tony, but it's always been based on, we want you to be a great communicator and we want you to be a great listener. So a lot of it is listening skills. It's listening for the cues the customer is giving you that you're ready to buy, and then asking for the sale. So all sales training is a variation of how you present yourself and how you close the sale. We call it a sale. It's really a service. Like you wouldn't be there unless the customer had a problem to start with. So, I don't care if it's like Billy Bob's training service or the best training service in North America. Give them something, invest in your people, because if you don't invest in them, then you know, they're only staying the same at best, or they're declining in their skills. So I believe have some form of sales training, whatever it is, and I've always felt like the guys appreciated that level of training. You know, everything from sales training, Tony, all the way to our required continuing education that we do with the technicians every year. Every year since we've started, we host the class in-house. We buy their dinner. We sit them down and make sure they get their continuing education, because we're investing in our people, you know. So
Man.
invest in your people.
And invest it into your people. I love that you say that. And I think that Robert, you know, I call him Rob, you call him Bob, it's Robert, and
Yeah.
if people
It
call
depends
those
on which
things too.
police force is looking for him
You
at
know,
the time.
I think that he's come such a long way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Started off as an apprentice, and he's plumber for 30 years. And this is why I love working with Rob. And why is that? Well, him and I recently joined forces. We joined teams, right? And what are we doing? We are teaching plumbing business owners and their companies around the USA, from Florida to Los Angeles, how to ethically sell with plumbing without burning out the reputation of the plumbing company, without gouging homeowners, and really offering solutions. And it's like communication skills. And so Rob is he's used to pumping out between $100,000 and $200,000 a month. And recently we trained a plumbing company in Los Angeles, and they have now graduated our program like today. So I wanted to give a quick update on that. And it's Fitzgerald Plumbing out of California. It's not a big company. He's got 3 plumbers working under him, and the salesman. So like his I'm gonna shoot out some hard numbers here. So like Christopher, one of his plumbers, he's normally selling between about $20,000. We got him, and within 1 month, he sold $77,000.
Wow.
Okay, one dude, first month of ever being trained with us. Then he had Leo. This guy normally sells between 15 and 20,000, not very much. He sold $60,000 in the last 30 days. Another guy, great dude. And then he has another guy by the name of William. He normally sells about $41,000 a month, and he pumped out $55,000. Okay, these are plumbers. And then you got like salesmen, right? That are not plumbing it out. They're plumbers at heart. They've been plumbing for a long time, but now they're plumbing salesmen, quote unquote supervisors. Anthony, he pumped out $209,000 in 30 days, and he was already doing good from before, not bad. He did 165 on a regular basis, but we got him to hit that goal of 209. And this is what I call life altering information. And so me and Rob, we've partnered up to help plumbing companies throughout the United States to pick up on this skill set. And I would like to invite other plumbing business owners to hire us. We're built from the best, born out of some of the best companies out here. And we're plumbers. We know how to do it. We're not out to gouge people or you. And it's a process that's guaranteed to work. And it's life-altering information. And so if anybody wants to know about that, you got that website that you can visit. It's called www.salestrainingforplumbers.com. How easy is that, right?
Super easy. Yeah.
Salestrainingforplumbers.com. And then the marketing side, which I've owned for going on 7 years, that one's called www.strictlyplumbers.com. Right. So what do? We help you get more jobs and then help you knock it out of the park. And it's like a 2-hit combo that is just life changing. But Rob, can you touch base on a little bit about this process and what's happened in your life and how we're helping plumbing business owners with their staff?
It's been really interesting. And I had this guy tell me that I've spent the last this really cool guy that I admire tell me that I've made the last 30 years of my life in the field, the laboratory, to be able to understand what make people tick, what make people buy, what motivates them, and how to do this in an honest and ethical fashion. As a matter of fact, you do it in such a way where they ask you to do the work for them. Essentially, if you do this in the right way, we don't have to worry about objections and having all these rebuttals. Now, naturally, you need that stuff, right? But when this is presented in the way that we've put this together, I guarantee you a 3x on this. I'm not going to guarantee it, but if you apply this system, it's going to insanely change your life. The amount of money you're going to make your boss happy for really, and your wife's going to be really happy because things are going to change in your life. Just like Alan, what you were saying, watching these guys send their kids to good schools, buy houses, things like that. These are the kind of life-changing stuff that we're talking about. So all we have to do is learn a different way of thinking or learning a different method and actually applying it. Because between Tony being in the industry for however many 20 years, 20 plus years now, me, I don't even want to admit how long I've been doing this, but I've been doing this since 1986. So I couldn't feel more blessed to have the people that I've had in my life. Alan's been one of the greatest mentors I've ever had. And now it's time to carry the torch.
That's
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
Big
that's
Daddy.
life-changing numbers, Tony and Bob. Like that's not life-changing numbers. You know, that company in Los Angeles you just spoke about, Fitzgerald Plumbing. Like, I think that training has maybe paid for itself. I'm no accountant, but like I did some quick math, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the deal. Like my dad used to say, you have to speculate to accumulate, right? You got to speculate on some training, and you'll accumulate tons of revenue. And you know, and I always say, look, if we only influence one person in the room, like if we just change one guy, how impactful is that going to be? Like unbelievably impactful. So I would say reach out to these guys and let's get them into your shop and do some sales training, and before you know it, you'll be on here talking about $112 million of business, you know.
Hey,
Yeah, that's
that's
what's up.
amazing. That is what's up. I have two more questions for you, Mr. Allen. I want to like take it back a little bit now.
Sure.
Okay, let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to 2012. And the question is, how did you know it was time to acquire a private equity investor?
Partner,
Right?
yeah.
And like how did you get to that? I know
Yeah,
you
I
talked to
didn't
the
like
attorney.
I as
Talked
I
to the
said,
attorney, you
Tony,
mentioned that.
yeah, I wasn't for sale. Like I was not for sale when we did it, but you know, it was a combination of forward planning, like what's going to happen to Abacus if something happens to me, and meeting the right guy. Like the guy that I partnered with in 2012, we're still friends today. Very honorable. He's like 20 years younger than me, maybe, but I consider him a mentor. Like he taught me a lot about um people, and is a Stanford graduate, someone that I respect really highly. But you know, we just connected, Tony. And I think if someone's out there considering taking on a partner, a private equity partner, or selling, or whatever you might do, unless you're leaving the company and walking away, but if you're staying involved, make sure that you're compatible, that you would go have a beer with that guy, that you could be friends with him, right? Because he's going to be your boss, whether you like it or not. No matter what percentage of the company you keep, he is going to be your boss. And you know, Colin, the gentleman I partnered with, has been a great friend to me over the years, and we still talk today. We talked by text the other day, and we haven't been involved in business together for a while. So, you know, it's I think it's time, Tony, when you it's like meeting the person that's going to be your wife, right, or your husband, or whatever it might be. You know, you know if it's right. I mean, you'll know if it's right. And if something's giving you the ick, and the voice in the back of your head is going, you know, this might not be a great move, but it's a lot of money. Forget about the money and walk away and do it when you're ready. That's my opinion.
That's a good point, because you don't want to be marrying somebody you don't get along with.
No,
right? So
it
it's
usually doesn't work, Tony.
yeah. So, another question. What is one single piece of advice that you can give a small plumbing company just starting out, or, you know, or maybe not just starting out, but, you know, let's call it a mid-sized company. Because we talked about marketing, sales training, right? Getting a partner. Give us another piece of advice that you can give a plumbing company to help them scale.
Yeah, I think, Tony, there's a couple of components. One is training your people, making sure your people are trained. That's a huge component. And the plumbing industry is changing all the time. All the time. So if you're not staying on top of the latest and the greatest products and services, you're going to fall behind. So training and making sure you're staying on top of that. But more importantly than that, I think, is investing in your people in terms of their education and doing the right thing by your customers. Marketing, when you know, everybody markets. You heard the old saying, 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know which 50% is working, right? So it's important to do marketing, but what's more important than to be marketing is to be tracking your marketing, is to know what's working and what's not working. So, you know, one of the things our marketing director here is really good at, and he's been with me since 2013, is he's absolutely analytical about making sure he knows where every dollar we spend goes and if it's working or not working. So if you're investing dollars into marketing, whether it's 10% or 20% or 4%, it doesn't really matter. You are investing. You're not spending, you're investing. And it's the same with training. You're not spending money on training, you're investing money in training. You want to know if it works. It's easy to see if the training has worked. Look, if it's Cheryl Plumbing, gone from this to this, right? Everything is a plus. But a lot of people spend money on marketing and then don't bother to track how it's working. Track your marketing and know if it's working or not.
I love that you said that, because it is something that I implement into my marketing agency, Strictly Plumbers, whenever I provide marketing. So how do I do that for the plumbers? Because for me, it's retention. If I can
Right.
prove that I'm making you money, you're going to want to stick around and keep
That's
paying
right.
your bill
That's
with me, right?
Yeah.
So I went through a phase in my company where I'm like, we're going to geek out on this, and we're going to crack the code on that now, you know? And it was years ago when this happened to my company. So what we put a system in, we put multiple systems in place, but one of the most important ones was tracking. How to track it? Well, you got to track like every channel and have
Absolutely.
return on investment formula. And you know this stuff. So I'm right now, I'm like talking to the audience. And so we like to have these monthly meetings, and so do other marketing agencies, but we do it a lot different from the regular marketing agencies. We go over your hard numbers, we integrate with like your Service Titan, and we start to pull out ROI. It's like, you paid this dollar and you made this dollar. Well, this is how much money you're making on this channel, this channel, this channel, this channel. And the clarity that they gain is amazing. And then we do 3 things. This is what you did last month. Okay. This is what needs to happen right now. You know, this is like, let's make some changes, make this better. Because it's not just about tracking, it's about optimizing right after that, right?
Absolutely.
And then,
Yeah.
so let's make these changes. So we give recommendations, and we're super proactive about, hey, we recommend this, we recommend that, so you can grow, versus, hey, pay me another dollar, or hey, raise your budget, you know? So we're really big on strategy. And then the third thing we talk about is what's going to happen in the next 30 days. You know,
Right.
what's going to happen. And so we, not just projections, but strategizing. If Black Friday is coming around, let's talk about a Black Friday promotion. Let's
Right.
start prepping up now. Christmas is coming around. Let's start talking about a Christmas promotion, you know? And some of these guys just don't know what to promote. And as a marketing agency owner, I'm the guy that's crafting these things up. Well, it's not just me by myself. I have 16 staff members that are helping me behind the scenes, strictly in the marketing world. in the last 7 years, I've been able to acquire multiple companies, and I'm very grateful to like sit in that position and allow my money to go out and acquire other companies and apply strategy, apply money, and be that private equity partner for them, you know. And it's been amazing to be that side.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to talk a little bit more about, to wrap up this call, you know, I want to say three things, two things and a question. So you need marketing for plumbers, hire me. If you need sales training for plumbers, hire me and Rob, right? Strictlyplumbers.com, sales training for plumbers.com. And then the last question is for Mr. Alan O'Neill. Now that you've reaped the rewards of your hard work, what are you doing for fun, bro? What are you spending all this money on? Like, tell us about your personal life. What are you doing
As
with all
Bob
this
will
money?
tell you, I'm an absolutely soccer fanatic. So last Wednesday I worked in the office and got on an airplane, went to England to watch a game, and I was back in my house on Sunday afternoon in Texas. So I love to watch football. My two grandkids are the absolute apple of my eye, Tony. Like I love spending time with my grandkids. Spending time with my long-suffering wife that stuck with me since I was, 19 years of age. We love to travel. We're heading off to Mexico tomorrow for the weekend, and in a couple of weeks we'll be going to Ireland for a couple of weeks for a 60th birthday party. So traveling, grandkids, soccer, just spending some quality time, Tony, because, I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine earlier on, and I was saying, we're both in our mid-60s. Like, I'm 63, he's 65. The life expectancy for a male in the US is either in the high 70s, low 80s, depending on what you read. We haven't got much time left. Like, we need to party hard for the next 15 years, So, no, but I mean, when I say, do all the things you want to do, right? And so I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave quietly. I want to leave like on a slide going, that was a hell of a ride. Like, I want to, when the time comes, I want to say I built something great. I enjoy the fruits of my labor. I changed many people's lives, and, I think one of the things I'm most proud of, Tony, is that I really haven't made any enemies. Like, I got a call from a guy, and Bob knows this gentleman, 2 weeks ago, that I fired for not having the lock on his truck and his tools got stolen. And he called me to tell me he got his master's license, and he was proud to have worked for me one time. Like, calls like that just make you feel great, and so, like, I just want to enjoy whatever time we have left without being morbid. Like, hopefully it's a long time, but family, sports, have some fun, stay as far away from Rob as I can, all that. But just enjoy it, Tony. Just enjoy it. Yeah.
Man, I really enjoyed this interview with you. I learned some cool stuff. I love your story. I admire you for what you did, and gosh, I feel lucky to know you, and I feel lucky to know Rob and partner with him on our venture. And it's just a blessing, and I love to hang out with people that have already did what I wish I could do, and you're definitely one of them. And I just want to say
Tony.
thank you. God bless you and your business and your family. And Rob, is there anything you want to say before we end this interview?
It's kind of hard for me. I take mine and Alan's relationship for granted because it spans, so many years, 2 decades now. And one of the things, I'm one of the people's lives that he had a great part in changing. And it's time for me to start passing that same stuff down. I've already helped hundreds of plumbers' lives, and it's going to be great to get to scale that even more. And hopefully everybody that's going to see this is, a testimony to give us a call. You can't go wrong doing business with us.
Yeah.
I've heard that somewhere before, Bob. I don't know where.
Oh yeah. I think, you know what? I actually think that got programmed into me, man.
Yeah, it probably did.
It did.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. You can't lose doing business with me.
Yeah.
That's good. I love it. Well, it's been an honor hanging out with you both, Mr. Allen O'Neill. Thank you for making the time to sharing some insights, sharing your story, sharing some knowledge. And I think we got some golden nuggets today. I think
Well,
anybody
thank you, Tony.
watching this
Yeah.
is
Big time.
we learned something. We learned something, whether it's
Mm.
sales training, marketing, private equity, putting systems in place, you know, there's a lot of stuff that he said, you know, like training your staff, being on the up and up on technology. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. This has been one of the coolest interviews so far. You're definitely one of the most successful plumbing business owners that I've ever met. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure. And I will back up Bob's credentials. Like I've worked with Robert for 20 years and he is unbelievably consistent at what he does year after year after year. And I'll say this, Tony, I can remember in those 20 years of him working for us as a service plumber, salesman, you know, all the different roles he's had, I can remember one complaint in 21 years, and that person was probably certifiably crazy. But, you know, I mean, all joking apart, it's hard to say that about people, but honestly, Bob has had practically zero complaints in 20 years, and that's a lot of calls. I don't know how many calls that is, but if you multiply 3 or 4 calls a day by 20 years, a lot of calls. So anyway.
Wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of
A
calls.
lot of calls.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I think that as people like yourself are going up this mountain and you make it to the top and you look down and you look at all the stuff that you've been through and all the people that's come along the road with you, and then you got Rob right there
Mhm.
to the day. And these words are just so honorable, right? And so this is what makes me feel more comfortable partnering with the guy on. I mean, I feel super confident in his skills and I love working with him. And we're like, man, it's 5 a.m. and we're texting each other because we were just so hyped up on what's going on because we're changing people's lives and we're making great money and our lives are changing for the better. And we're making some dreams come true for ourselves. And I feel like when people at your level allow certain people to still be in your life, that tells something about their character.
Mhm.
You know, you
Yeah.
can't, because you can't just let anybody stick around, even if
Yeah.
you like them. You
Mhm.
know, maybe they don't, you know, maybe.
No, wait, Tony, I don't like him. I never said anything about liking him. No, I'm kidding. But you're absolutely right, Tony. Like it's I always say, look, you know, don't treat the janitor any differently than you treat the CEO. We're all the same. We all put our pants on one leg at a time, you know. And I just happen to be really fortunate. I can call a lot of these guys friends. So it's
Absolutely.
cool. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, there's about 400 and something of them. There's something, Rob's doing something right
Absolutely.
to be able to contact you on a regular basis and have you.
Yeah,
as
we're friends. Like we
friend.
talk, yeah, we talk about all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, he
Tony,
sends
thank
me.
you very much for the opportunity to be on your podcast. And Robert, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate you.
All right. Take care, guys. Have a good
Take
day.
care. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you plumbers soon. Peace.